tune in, that means you're feeling the vibe. The bell rung, you already been subscribed. Right now, the queen, she on live. Right now. Please pull over the whip, no phoning when you drive. Dope Soul Sporting with the talk. First lady from New York, Brooklyn. All my people, you rocking with the chat. Hit that. The like button would tell me where you at. You know, Step from the NBK. Born and raised up NBK. Hey, real lady when she holding it down. No matter way how you feel, she gon' greet you with a smile.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
What?
Dope Soul.
What?
Your soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to our first off-season Monday show. I don't have a name just yet. I'll figure that part out. But we'll be going Monday and Thursdays, at least through the busy part of the off-season. That may change in August. We'll figure it out. But Mondays, 8 o'clock. Thursdays, 9 o'clock. Today, we're going to do player evaluations player evaluations. We're going to start with the starters, and then we'll talk a little bit about the coaching search and just our preference between Mike Brown or Jenkins if we were pressed to make a choice. But we'll start with the play evaluations, and basically it's going to be whether that player met our individual expectations, right? Whether they met our expectations, didn't meet our expectations, or exceeded our expectations. And everyone has different criteria. So we'll talk about what our criteria is, whether or not we're grading on a curve. You know, spoiler alert, I'm grading on a curve for a lot of these, for a lot of the players. Shout out to the chat. Geoff, Ajay, how you two feeling?
Salute. Salute, Queen. Geoff.
Salute.
Always a pleasure to be here, hanging out with you guys and talking about the Knicks.
And
we
chop it
do
up.
This is the first of many episodes of the Monday night show. Queen, we got to come up with a name. Like you said, we got to come up with a name for this thing.
Yeah, we do. We do have to come up with a name. I'll figure it out. All right. So any particular order we want to do it, or are we just going to go 1 through 5? Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center.
That works.
That works. All right. Let's go. All right. Let's start with, hold on. Don't turn off yet. No. All right. So we're going to start with Jalen Brunson. He played 35.4 minutes per game. This is the regular season. I should have had the playoff stats, but we can reference them if we need to. 26 points, 2.9 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 0.9 steals, 2.5 turnovers on shooting splits of 488, 383, 2.1. There were so many advanced stats. I thought about LeBron. But anyway, per the play efficiency rating, the average, I believe, is 14 or 15. I believe it's 15. So above average per 21.6, true shooting 60.5%, clutch play of the year award, second team all NBA, all-star team, actually an all-star team starter if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson, arguably, not to me though, the best player on the team. Stats wise, had a really good season. Some people can argue that his process wasn't good, and in the playoffs he wasn't great, even though his stats was great. But I think context matters. And I think if the schemes are not in your favor, this is just in general. I'm not saying this was the case in the playoffs. If the lineups are not in your favor, if players are not hitting shots, and so they're able to key on you, it really changes things. Like the Jalen Brunson we saw in the first 30 games is the same Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean? So I do think lineups and schematics and those things do impact a player and how they look. But I thought Jalen Brunson continued to be the head of the snake. I thought he continued to lead us. I do think he's still figuring out, when to, I want to say, when to get others involved, when to take over. And I do think that's true. But I also think the offense is such that it was just geared toward him. I don't know if that was just him hijacking the offense or if that's the way Tom Thibodeau preferred it to be. And I don't know whether or not that's because Jalen Brunson is at his best playing this way. And if he plays any other way, we don't get the best Jalen Brunson. I think all of those questions have yet to be answered. So, I mean, you guys can give a grade if you want. I'm going to go with met, didn't meet, or exceeded my expectations. And I'm going to say that he met my expectations for this season. And there's and the best is yet to come. Geoff, then Ajay, and then the next player we'll switch it around. Just your thoughts on Jalen Brunson, and however you want to evaluate him.
Well, I to me, when evaluating Brunson, one thing about Jalen since he got here, in my opinion, that's clear, is he's a floor raiser. And when he got here, the second round of the playoffs has been our floor. And the question that everybody's been asking is can he be the ceiling raiser? Can he be the guy who takes us to the next step, which was the Eastern Conference Finals, which we got to, and then the final step, which is NBA Finals and a championship, which we haven't gotten to yet. So, but here's a guy who it was interesting because you said something that caught my attention and stuck with me before the season started, Queen, and that was you thought this was going to be a season unlike any other that Brunson had faced before, just because of the expectations that were different. Like he kind of went under the radar and flew under the radar, but there was none of that this year. With how the previous season ended, expectations were at a minimum that this team would make the Eastern Conference Finals, and I guess from that standpoint, he reached the minimum, but he didn't really carry us beyond that. And I think a lot of the disappointment that goes with this season and the changes that we're going through now are a result of that not reaching our full potential. And I think Brunson may be a little bit part of that. The stats are great. He's the best point guard we've had since Clyde Frazier. Of that, there is no debate, in my opinion. There's no denying. He's a piece that you build a franchise around. We're lucky to have him. We're paying him like a top 50 player instead of a top 10 player. That's phenomenal. So from those standpoints, he had a terrific year. But just based on those other things, I think I would probably grade him out about an A-.
Okay. Obviously, the further you get in the playoffs, the tougher it is because you're playing better teams. For example, most teams may know the formula to beat in the Knicks or the formula to beat in the Pacers or the formula to beat in the Celtics, but do you have the players that can execute it, right? That's always the issue. So as the Knicks went further in the playoffs, I know some Knicks fans felt like Brunson got found out. I guess my question to you, Geoff, is did Brunson get found out? And or did the offense, the lineups, the schematics that didn't put him and the team in the best light get found out?
I know that you find out Brunson. I mean, Brunson is a bucket getter. Like we've seen defenses throw double, triple teams out. You still can't stop him when he's at his best. I think his process lacked some in the Pacers series. I think matchups matter, and the Pacers were not a great matchup for us as a team, in my opinion. I think that we didn't do enough to make things easier for Jalen. Like I thought we almost put too much responsibility on his shoulders as far as bringing the ball up court against constant pressure. And I think there are things that we could have done schematically that could have just lightened the burden on him a little bit and increased his performance. But I'm of the opinion I don't think we win 2 games in the series without him. We certainly aren't in the series at all if we don't beat Boston without him at all. So we could split hairs and we can parse this, parse that, and say he should have done more, or he got found out, or his averages in the series were still really good. His shooting percentages were a little bit lower than you would have liked probably, and again, some of his decision making, passing the ball to OG when you're up by 4 or 3, 4, whatever it was, instead of bringing the ball back out and making him foul you, that will forever haunt me as part of his decision making. But he has some areas of his game he can improve, process being one. I would like to see him throw the lob pass to Robinson if he's still here more. And again, I think he rejects too many screens. And so I'd like to see more on the pick and roll with he and Towns especially. But a lot of that stuff is minutia. I mean, he had a great season and he's a great building block. So I was thrilled with the season that Brunson had.
Yeah. For sure. I do think he looks better in a different situation. We shall see. Ajay, your thoughts on Brunson and just your criteria for how you're grading him?
All right. So, are we giving a grade or are we giving him?
It's up to you. If you want to give a grade, if you want to do met, didn't meet, exceeded expectations, however you want to do it.
Or I could do both.
Or you can do both.
All right. So, Jalen Brunson met my expectation. He did not exceed. Okay. And again, this is based on my expectation before the season started, right? It has nothing to do with numbers or anything like that. This is what I expected. And what came out of, at the end of the season, you get the season as a whole, you're like, I really expected more. And the reason why I expected more is because when they made the trade for Karl Anthony Towns, right? The framework for the idea behind the trade was to bring somebody else to get Jalen Brunson more help. Okay, bring somebody else who could shoulder a lot of the load, who could make the game easier for him. I feel like too many times, the game seemed too hard for Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. So I don't want it to. I know we'll get to Cat, and this is not a reflection of Cat's game. Because Jalen Brunson is the point guard, he is the floor general, so he can control a lot of what's going on in the game. I feel like Cat wasn't too many times. He wasn't involved. He wasn't that helper that he was supposed to be. Not really because of his fault, but because the ball just never made it around to him. Okay, so because of that, I mean, Brunson himself, like the team got further. Obviously, this year the team as a whole did well, but Brunson, I expected him not just to do better, but to work not as hard, to work a little bit less harder to get to where he's at. So I feel like he didn't use the tools that he had at his disposal. I want to say often enough, or I guess So a lot of those one-on-one buckets, which I don't have a problem with, because I've said many times on the show, if if he's hogging the ball but he's scoring, he's getting the points, I don't care. Go up, shoot every time. But when you got to be smart about it, right? You got to use your basketball IQ. In the most recent series with the Pacers, when they making it hard for you, they throw in like 4 or 5 different guys at you. You don't fight the fight by yourself. You have 4 of the teammates on the floor, engage them, get them involved so you can get more help. So that's one of the main reasons why he only met my expectations. So he did basically what you expect him to do, but not more. Okay. And I expected him to do more because he had more help. He had a better team around him, not just Karl Anthony Towns, but he also had Mikal Bridges next to him as a shooting guard. So this kind of reflect the other two guys a little bit, but as the floor general, I think Brunson should have done like a lot more to get those guys involved. So I mean, he gets in probably an A minus, which leave room for him to be better, because he could go another couple of notches, A and A plus, but he's definitely in the A range, so he gets A minus for meeting my expectation.
How much of getting the others involved, particularly Brunson, if I don't know if you want to do it by percentage, but how much of it do you think was him? How much of it do you think was the coaching and the schemes in terms of Towns not being as involved, and you can even the others not being as involved?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching, but we know, and like this has been going around, that Tibbs, he actually give the guys the freedom to do what they want a lot, especially the guys that he trusts. So we know a lot of that is Jalen Brunson's decision not to get those guys involved or taking up more of the load than he really should have been. But again, at some point, the coach has got to look at the game from the out. Not just the coach. When I say coach, I mean the staff, right? Not Tom Thibodeau. I mean the whole staff. Because Tibbs, when he's in the game, like he's a little bit preoccupied with certain things. The guys behind him, they have to take notes, have to collect data. So somebody at some point's got to tell Brunson, listen, you're doing too much. There's certain situations where you got to get Cat involved, where you got to get Mikal Bridges involved. When OG Anunoby's hot, he can't miss. Get him and keep feeding him until they stop you and stuff like that. So it's a little bit coaching, but it's because we know Tibbs, a lot of players that he trusts, he gives them the freedom to do whatever they want. So I put a lot of the blame on the players themselves.
Yeah. I think I would probably give him the same grade or maybe even an A, but for different reasons. I still think he's, like I said, I still think he's learning, how to get others involved. But I do think this offense was very Brunson centric. Starting New Year's Day, and I know a lot of content creators have pointed out that was when they started to put the center on Towns, and their wing on Towns and the center on Josh Hart, which really impacted the space that those guys had to operate. Brunson looked like a maestro before that happened, and we were like, "Wow, the team is 30 assists a game. Wow, I didn't even know Brunson had this type of vision." Because the space was there. And when the other teams made that adjustment, Tom Thibodeau had an opportunity, even if he didn't change the starting lineup, he definitely had an opportunity to lean into a lineup that had more space in, and he didn't do that. And you can argue that what we saw from Jalen Brunson going forward, some of it was his process and still, again, trying to figure out when to. But some of it was just him operating with less space, and how that impacts his game. So I think that's why I'm going to grade him on a curve for that. I also didn't like, and I think I'm being very specific here. I didn't like Game 6. I didn't like, they wanted to run picks for him, bringing two guys up to help him get free, but doing it over the sideline. Like usually when you do that in the backcourt to free him up. They do it once he gets over half court. So basically, your own teammates are trapping you, bringing their guys to you, and you can't. So anyway, my point is, depending on the lineups and schematics, you can look like the best player out there. Then there's other times you can look like, where we get this guy from, So, I'm gonna give him a A. I think his defense definitely got exposed, but again, there were other things that could have been done, maybe, to maybe help him out there. Let me just get to the chat. JJ gives Brunson a minus. East Blue Drew also an A minus. Keith Turner thought our offense was just too Brunson centric. Taylor Jenkins will break him out of that crap. You know, you gotta. We'll get into this, but I'll say you gotta have players that buy into it. And what's becoming clear is that if your best player doesn't buy into it and they're not happy, the shelf life of the coach is not that long. I mean, that's some of what was going on in Memphis. If I read the article correctly, he wanted them to be less Morant centric, less pick and roll centric, and Morant, you know, said all the right things, but I'm not sure if he really wanted the ball out of his hands, you know. Anyway, East Blue Drew Brunson was great this year, but he got to get his point guard stats up. His job is to get the other guys in rhythm. Listen, what's a point guard stat? Like, I think if you're expecting Brunson to get 10, 12 assists, like, he's not Halliburton. Like, that's just not him. I don't know if you can grade Brunson on assists. I think you just got to grade him on his decision making, whether the guys make the shot or not. What was his process? Did he make the right decision? And if he's making the right decisions and guys are making shots, he's going to get the assist. If he's making the right decisions and guys aren't hitting shots, he's not going to get the assist. It's his process. So, you know, when you're watching a game, you can see like, wow, you know, he took that shot, he made it with 4 guys draped over him, but he had 2 guys in the corner wide open who's shooting like, you know, 39% or 40% from the corner. I'm not saying that was the case, but that's process. And I think we have to judge Brunson and any point guard, in my opinion. What's their process? What's the process? All right. Sharon Brunson was double and triple teamed in the playoffs. The old Randall treatment, he was. And so this goes back to your double and triple team. Like, get off the ball and find the open guy, or you're double and triple team for a reason, because those other guys aren't hitting shots or getting, you know, or getting open. All right. I think that's all we have for okay. Wiz, appreciate you. Brunson, A minus, and did not exceed my expectations. 60% tips, 30% JB, 10% other playoffs. Okay. All right. Anything else on Brunson? What's your expectation for him next year?
Well, to at least do better than expectation, because you are now, this is, and assuming that with the core of the roster still around this season, right? You expect Brunson to trust his teammates more and get them involved more and be able to read the game. You know, I saw somebody posted here, and I'm sorry I didn't make a note of who posted. Tibbs' offense is, or Tibbs' model is read and react. Okay, the game tells you what to do. That's what they say, but I don't think that's what they did. Okay, they didn't, like, we've seen game after game when the Knicks didn't do what the game told them to do. Like, the obvious thing they did, maybe they were overthinking everything, but they, like, a lot of times they completely missed what the game's telling them to do. And, you know, one of those things, many games that the game's telling you to do is, you know, get Jalen Brunson off the ball. All right. Sometimes you got to have somebody else bring up the ball, or like you said, Queen, help him, but early in bringing up the ball. Okay. Not like after 15 seconds done go by, then all of a sudden you want to set a pick to free him up.
Or over half court where you're basically sealing him in.
Right. So free him up from the backcourt, or, you know, just be smart about it. So they're not following that, they're not doing what the game's telling them to do. So I expect Jalen Brunson 1 year later, with the core of the group still here, hopefully, to be able to trust his teammates, understand what the teammates are capable of, and again, read the game. Sometimes, man, this is hoops. Sometimes you have a guy on a heater. You got to keep feeding him and until he cools off. If he doesn't cool off, and keep going to the well, until the other team adjusts. And I pointed out over that last series with the Pacers, that's what they do. They find a guy who's hot, and then they keep going to that guy. I don't know if you guys watched the finals, but there was a game when Benedict Mathurin was hot. The guy's coming off the bench, and they just kept going to him until you figure out how to stop it. If you can't stop him, then they're just going to keep going. Why stop it if it's working? You know what I'm saying? So he, as the floor general, as the point guard, he has to be able to read that. He's able to understand the plays that work, and the plays that work, keep going to them. Again, something I mentioned a lot of times on this channel and on the Just Nicking It show. We don't have a name for this show yet. So on the Just Nicking It show, I had to throw that in, Queen. But I don't know. You could count on one hand how many times we ran the pick and roll. Something that it's lit, but that one hand you could count how many times every time we run it, it works. Something good comes out of it, right? You either score, you get a foul, you get something comes out of it, but then we don't run it. So as the guy running, the guy with the ball in his hand, sometimes you got to call out those plays.
Yeah. Geoff, and then I have another question for Brunson. Because when you said as the point guard, but go ahead, Geoff. I don't want to mix it up. I'll ask afterwards.
Brunson catches a lot of flack, I think, for the whole playmaking issue. I don't really care that much. He actually averaged more assists this year than he has any other year in his career. So from that standpoint,
I'm not worried about that either.
His numbers are up. And as Adjay will tell you, assists are a bogus stat, right? That's my guy.
Yes,
half-ass.
Not to cut you off. That means he has better shooters around him. Not that he passed the ball more often. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever the case may be, I wouldn't mind seeing him play off the ball some. I actually think that's a good idea. In theory, in practice, I wonder if it winds up with a Ja Morant type situation where he's unhappy and then the offense craters. I don't know if that, I don't tend to think that he's the same mindset as Morant. I tend to think of him as a player who has a high level of IQ and maturity, and that he just wants to win. And so from that perspective, I think that he's going to be fine. And I think that we'll see better from Jalen Brunson. I don't think he's reached his peak yet. He's still learning this team. He's still learning Cat. I didn't even have a training camp together. So give it some more time and just trust the captain. I mean, he's been great for us, and just enjoy him while you got him. And we tore Patrick Ewing down while he was here, and then when he was gone, we sure were wishing we had him. So let's just enjoy Jalen while we got him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question to me, I don't think has been answered yet, but you two may think it has been, and I'm interested in what the chat says, thinks, and we'll get to Paris Douglas super chat. Appreciate you, Paris. Is Brunson the point guard or shooting guard of the future? Like, have we seen enough from him to believe that point guard is definitively his position? He's in the mold of Amar Berry. You think about basically every other guard that's not Chris Paul or Halliburton, and it's just a matter of him getting better at being a score first shooting guard. And listen, it's the same thing in football, how the run opens up the pass, but the pass can open up the run as well, right? So having the assist can open the game up, but having a score first point guard who creates a lot of attention, drives a lot of attention to him, can also open things up for other players. So I don't think I don't think one is better than the other. I think it's how well do you execute it? Like how well do you have it down almost to a science with your reads, right? I think that's what makes, what makes the difference. And, if that is an issue with Brunson, and sometimes I think it is, you could say, listen, he's early in the process, in terms of where the Knicks are, not necessarily how long he's been in the league, but in terms of where the Knicks are. This is their first time, going to the Eastern Conference Finals. You look at Tatum and Brown, they're like, what, 18 years old, and they got like 100 and something playoff games to them, and they're still young. Brunson has, I don't know how many, well, he was with Dallas, so he does have some, but not in this particular role, right? So it remains to be seen, in my opinion. Is this just his process? And as the years goes on, he's going to get better figuring out the balance, or is he just best at shooting guard and bringing somebody that's going to, be the facilitator. And when that guy goes out, then Brunson moves to point guard, but he starts off as the shooting guard. Ajay, do you think Brunson it's just solidified he's a point guard, or do you think there's still a question?
So he's a point guard, but he's so and I think, and I'm gonna go off on a limb a little bit here. When they bought Mikal Bridges, I think the intention was they thought, and they seen him do that in Brooklyn. Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn was bringing up the ball, so they felt he could be able, he would be that backcourt partner that would kind of share duties with Brunson. And I still think they can do that. It's just that we didn't run that this year for some reason. And that's where you go into coaching. The coach is like, probably, listen, let Jalen Brunson bring up the ball. But I think Mikal Bridges is capable of bringing up the ball. If he can't, the teams should try to go in that direction. This has happened in the NBA before. And the best example I could think of that is Philly with Allen Iverson, right? When they realize that he's small to be a point guard, right? But he's better off being a shooting guard and not have the sole guy not be the only guy bringing up the ball, right? So kind of relieve him of that duty a little bit. Have somebody in the backcourt to share that duty. So it doesn't have to be any particular guy. So you have two guys that could bring up the ball, and it's kind of random. So that takes a lot of the load off, and you don't have to be the one doing it all the time. So
can I ask you a question though?
Yes.
For you, is there a difference between bringing the ball up and facilitating the offense, or is that one in the same?
Usually the guy who brings up the ball facilitates the offense.
Okay.
Usually.
Okay. So
but it's not set in stone though, because a lot of times the guy bring up the ball, as soon as you start getting into the
your set.
into your set, then you dish off. And passing the ball doesn't have to necessarily be Brunson. I mean, it could be the cat, because the offense, it depends on how you design the offense. It could be going through cat on certain plays, on certain possessions where Brunson's completely off the ball. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you have 4 other guys that are moving on the court, and you could. And I know we don't call out plays for OG Anunoby or Joshua or very
not hard, but not sometimes hard. OG.
Right. But there are other things you could do that doesn't involve Brunson at all, where Brunson could just be the catch and shoot guy. You know what I'm saying? And again, bringing up the ball doesn't mean you have to, your handles has to be like, top notch or anything like that. It depends on the team you're playing, right? Some teams you're playing where Mikal Bridges is more agile and more speedy, more faster than the guy he's playing, or longer than the guy he's playing. So you got to take advantage of the situation of the teams you're playing. And some teams you're playing, it could just be Brunson bringing up the ball most of the time.
Yeah. This is what I hope for Bridges, and maybe the next coach can get it out of him. Maybe he just wasn't given the opportunity. He brought the ball up some, but I mean, like, when I mean what I think will help the Knicks is having somebody, whether that's Bridges and he can do it, or somebody else that can run the offense, initiate the offense. And I hear you, AD, whether it's a set, whether it's action, whatever it is, can initiate it. Because a lot of what I see is the guy bringing the ball up the court and giving it to Brunson. I mean, I guess it helps with wear and tear, right? It helps with him, not having to bring it up every time against the defense. But I would really like him to be free, where he can really play off the ball, because we have somebody that can initiate the sets. Geoff, just your thoughts, and then I'll get to the super chat and what others in the chat have to say. I appreciate the conversation. Do you think he's a point? Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Interestingly, his usage percentage and his assist percentage were down this year from the year before, and his offensive win shares were actually lower this year than they were last season as well. So I don't know if that means that the more the ball's in his hands, the better our offense is, or if it just maybe other factors involved, because there's certainly noise with some of those statistics, and I don't pretend to I'm not a statistician. I can't pretend to understand all of that stuff, but I also think that, like, positions matter less and less and less in the NBA. Like, if we want to talk about a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, I think there's sometimes your small forward is your point guard, right? Like, sometimes they have that responsibility. Sometimes your power forward it can run your offense. So it really depends. I think now more than ever, versatility and positionless basketball is more toward where things are the direction things are headed. And so from that standpoint, I don't have an issue with what we've gotten from Jalen. And I just don't think, like, to me, it's not a big deal. Like, to other folks, it may be. I don't mind his process. When you shoot the ball as well as Jalen does, I want you taking a lot of shots. The advantage of playing him off ball some is I think we could get some of those wide open catch and shoot 3-point opportunities, and that would be good for him because he's very good at that particular type of shot. And so I think that would maximize him more. But I would really be curious to see him play alongside someone who genuinely has point guard skills, and I don't know that he's done that yet in a Knick uniform. So it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree with you that the game is moving toward positionless, but you got to have those players who have that skill set. Like, it can't just be positionless if you got a shooting guard who can't distribute, who can't handle the ball, or you got a power forward who can't handle the ball, right? In order for your team to be positionless, those guys have to have those skill sets. Every one of those guys have to have that skill set. So if you have a team and you got Brunson and you got, maybe I shouldn't use KD, or I'm trying to think of, like, these guys who plays different positions, but they can facilitate an offense, then you have a positionless basketball team. But if you got guys who can't do that, then who's our point guard? You know what I mean? On this particular team. So I'm not sure if the Knicks are positionless. I don't think OG can initiate an offense.
Queen.
Yeah.
Extra question: why you don't want to use KD? You don't want this thing to go sideways?
Not even the Knicks want KD.
I don't want the conversation to go sideways. Right. Well, okay, quiet money, Luka. So if we had Brunson and we had Luka and we had KD and we had AD, that's positionless basketball. Any one of those guys can bring the ball up, initiate our sets. We good. I don't know if the Knicks have that. I don't think so. I don't think the Knicks have it. Let me check in with the chat. Let me get to Paris Duggar. It's at a point where it's hard to follow the Knicks with various fans. JB carried us to where we got. This is a play-in team without his performance under fire. The other players aren't Final Four talent. Paris, okay, I get it. So that means that he's perfect. That means we can't talk about how he can get better. Like, I agree with you. You know, you could say that. I do think, like, everybody's like, oh, we got Mikal Bridges, we got OG, he got a lot of help. I'm not sure how much help. He does have some help compared to last season. But he's still gonna be a heavy lifter, even with those guys. So I get that part, but I still think, yeah, we can talk about how
he can improve.
he can, improve. And I know there's some that's out there that's on his neck. But I think criticism is fine. Paris Duggan, Mikal, Cat OG misses so many shots. JB passed plenty. Yeah, I think you do have to look at pass percentage more than assists. I don't know if assists is the metric to judge a point guard's passing ability, unless like the team shot 58% from the field that game and he had 3 assists. He had 3 assists. Anthony D. Bridges' shot was broken all season. How do you expect Brunson to make the pass, then make the shot for the teammates? Yeah, that's fair. And I think that was another reason why he was, he can get doubled and triple teamed, or the space can get crowded because they didn't have to respect him, respect the the other players on the floor. But I also think lineups matters as well. You got to have lineups in there that creates that spacing where, the defense has to pay attention to them. J Tap, been a minute. Appreciate you. Bridges is a horrible passer, so I'm good with him not running the offense. Yeah. Positionless means everyone can play every position, and that is not the Knicks. Old head, our offense doesn't have movement. There's no flow. It's let's watch Brunson create or give it to Cat. Everyone else gets scraps.
Well,
I do think the schemes and lineups have something to do with it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
well, Queen. I mean, question is, there's no movement because Brunson doesn't pass the ball? Is it Brunson doesn't pass the ball because there's no movement? Do you know what I'm saying? Because if I'm running all over the place and I don't ever get the ball, at some point I'm gonna start running. I'm gonna be like, I might as well stand in this corner and just wait for it to happen. So you guys cutting back door and doing all this, like, and nobody's passing the ball to them, and so they stop the movement.
Yeah,
that could be it.
So what the ball move? What is this hot potato? This is my argument from a few years ago when we had JB and Randall, and everybody's like, the ball doesn't move, the ball mustn't. And we had 2 of the top 10 ISO players in the league, and and the offense was all right, So yeah, I do get you. There's a fine line between that. Getting others involved. Listen, this is Memphis is dealing with this. The Knicks is dealing with this. Anybody who has a really, really good ball dominant guard, it's just hard to find a balance between getting others involved, not standing around, but at the same time, making sure that ball dominant player is keeping his foot on their necks and not just, playing it easy, and making it easy for them. So that's just a balance. You got a ball dominant guard. I don't know about a motion. You want some motion, don't get me wrong, but I don't know about this equal opportunity offense if you have a ball dominant guard. You got to figure it out. Paris Duggan again, question if Hart could shoot, don't JB get 11 assists? Probably, but not because Josh Hart is making his shots, but because there's more space. So if there's more space, there's probably more cutters. There's a lot of other things going on. All right. Anything else about Brunson?
I will say this too. I think sometimes when Brunson in the game, he's so good at what he does that his teammates tend to stand around and kind of watch and wait for him to do something good. It's easy to do when you've got a clutch player like that. It's like, oh, what's Brunson going to do this time? And so, and we've seen, look, the first 30 games of the season, the Knicks were, how many 30 assisted games did we see? We saw a bunch of them. And so, if you want to put the onus and the blame squarely on JB's shoulder because he's the captain, okay, I guess that's fair to an extent. But I don't buy the narrative that he's a non-willing passer or a poor passer or anything like that. He could be my point guard anytime. I'll take him over any other point guard in the league. That's just me. And maybe I'm a homer, but
probably, but it's okay. Yeah, I don't buy into that. Now, whatever he's doing, he believes. I don't know him. I believe that he believes he's doing what's best for the team. I don't think he's out there selfish trying to get stats. Sometimes he does get into these little individual battles with the defender. I don't think that takes over the entire game, though. All right. Anything else on all right. Let's get to Mikal Bridges counting stats. He played 37 minutes, 17.6 points, 3.2 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 0.9 steals, half a block on splits of 50%, 35.4%, and 81.4%. He had a wow. His PER was 14, play efficiency rating was 14.0, which is below average, and his true shooting percentage of 58.5. Mikal, kind of a lightning rod, counting stats wise, I thought he was fine. I thought he came up big for us in more than a few moments, particularly closing out game 1 and game 2 in Boston. I think his role was different on this team. This wasn't a free agent signing. This was a trade. If this was a free agent signing and they said, we're signing you to be the point of attack defender, be the third option. We're not going to really run much for you. I don't know if he signs, maybe, but he was traded here. I thought the Knicks felt like, we got to surround Brunson with defenders. We got OG. If we can get Mikal Bridges on the other side of Brunson, this is going to be really good for us. He can guard the point guard, so that way we can hide Brunson somewhere else. Obviously, they signed him before Cat, and having to figure out how to hide two players. I think a lot of what we saw with Bridges is just being used in a way he wasn't used before, both defensively and offensively, trying to get acclimated to a new team. The skill is there. I don't think we saw the best of Bridges. I'm going to grade him on a curve. I don't know, him being a point of attack defender was the best role for him. So I'm going to give him a B, because I don't want to say met expectations. I'm going to say, I'm going to say he didn't meet my, yeah. Let me think on it. Ajay, thoughts on Bridges?
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you he did not meet expectations. He didn't meet the expectations this season. Now, having said that, I'm not ready to get rid of him yet. I'm not ready to trade him because I think you got to remember Mikal Bridges. He has a body of work. Okay, he was much better when he played with Phoenix. He was much better when he played with Brooklyn. And he did, like, I don't know what the stats say, but the eye test tells me he didn't have a good year because there were too many times, too many plays in too many games. He didn't come through. He couldn't come through. He's supposed to be like, I think part of it is because he wasn't used like in a optimized way. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
The team or the coaching staff, when they I don't know, when they traded for him, I don't know what the intent was, but bottom line is if he was here to only be a defender, I mean, I don't know. I mean, teams do trade for people who have like one or two skill set, but Mikal Bridges can also score, and the team also try to get some scoring out of him. So he was extremely inconsistent all season long on the offensive end, and on defense he was just as inconsistent. So it's not like he was handcuffing anybody on that end of the floor either. That happened a couple of times, but it rarely happened throughout the season. So for somebody they brought in here to be a top-notch defender, he didn't do his job in that role. But you could say, well, because he had scoring duty, but he didn't do that either. So he was caught in the middle and ended up not doing everything great. So he was okay on both ends, but he wasn't great. And he's I want to say, so when a player once in a while, like how Julius Randle was turnover prone, like he was sloppy. Mikal Bridges didn't have a lot of turnovers, but it was guaranteed for somebody who the ball is not in your hand like all the time. You don't have like a high usage rate. He had at least 2 or 3 bonehead turnovers every game. You got to be a little more focused.
That's a lot, AJ. I don't think he averaged that many per game.
No, well, not per game, but he's got to average almost 2, like 1 point something, very close to 2. Maybe not 3, but definitely like
I mean boneheaded. I mean, he may have averaged 2 or 3 turnovers. I will check.
But and boneheaded, like I anything unforced, like if there were unforced turnovers, like just throwing the ball away, like he's gonna have a couple of those every game. Sometimes we don't pay attention because it doesn't come at a critical, like it'll come in first quarter when nobody cares. Sometimes they come at critical moments of the game. Okay, so I mean, this is his first season. He wasn't great at anything, Mikal Bridges. So for that, I think he didn't meet expectation, because you expect him to be a great defender, to stop some of those guys, like those guys, to be this great wing defender. He wasn't a great wing defender, in my opinion.
Do you give him any grace because he wasn't guarding wing players? He was guarding point guards.
Yes, that fact, again, that's, like I said, he was probably was misused. And that's, I mean, I can only judge by what I see, right? Maybe next season they have him guarding wings and he does better. But right now, whoever he was guarding, like, he wasn't really stopping too many people. But don't get me wrong, he had some good defensive plays and some good defensive moments, right? But it wasn't like, oh, you want to stop somebody, put Mikal Bridges on him.
Yeah, I think we found out that he's not a point of attack defender, and I think once we get a point of attack defender and we move him back to his natural position, I think we're gonna we'll be happier with Mikal Bridges. And I think for me, that's why I graded him on a curve. I just don't. They tried it out. They tried it out to see if he would be able to do it, and I just don't think he's good at it. Geoff?
It just was such a frustrating player to me. It's crazy those stats you put up with the advanced stats. His player efficiency rating below average, but his true shooting percentage is actually pretty good, right? Yeah. And here's a guy who, I mean, that mid-range game, literally every time he takes that turnaround midi, I expect it to go in. Like, I am shocked when it doesn't go in. So that, and I know it's the least efficient shot in the sport or whatever. He does it really well. And sometimes you just need to be able to get buckets like that. And it helped us in many different situations. The Christmas Day game against San Antonio, he was phenomenal. It was a brilliant virtuoso chef's kiss performance. Absolutely fantastic. The blocks in the Celtics series were incredible. He will always have a place in my heart for that.
And the 14 points. Remember those?
Yeah.
Was it 14 fourth quarter points or something like that in one of those games?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what irks me the most about Bridges' performance, I mean, you guys already mentioned his not being a great point of attack defender when that's what we really needed him to be. But also, to me, was he missed so many wide open 3-pointers this year, like wide open. And his 3-point shot, he only made 35% of his threes this year, and it really felt like he was wide open a lot, and we would get him the ball, and it was just like, not only was it a brick, but it seemed like it was a brick that turned into a fast break on the other end. And so you're talking about a 5 or a 6-point swing, and that ran me insane. And it felt like it happened quite a bit. And so, you know, he had his moments of brilliance, and you kind of saw what it could be, but what it could be wasn't what it was enough for him to get a good grade from me. I would put him at a C+ or a B-.
Wow.
And the reason behind that is I think that we needed him to do certain things well for this team to reach its maximum potential. And I think he, in large part, failed in both of those areas. You know, maybe it was because we put him in a spot that he wasn't accustomed to, or what have you. But you should be able to make wide open shots, to me, and especially from three. I thought his lack of 3-point shooting was one of the things that really helped to crater the offense. So again, and I know part of my grade was probably shaded by the fact of how much we gave up for him, and that's not fair to him. I get it, but I'll close my comments by saying this. If we can put him in a deal to Memphis and bring back Jaren Jackson Jr., sign me up right away.
Really? I don't get the whole. And you would play Jaren Jackson and Cat?
You bet. I think that's a great combo.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess. He's just such a poor rebounder. You got OG, who's a poor rebounder. I guess he still averages more. He still averages more than Bridges, but anyway. Do you think? Well, first of all, would you forget trading him? I guess you can trade him. Would you trade him or re-sign him, Geoff?
That's a great question. Here's the thing. I don't really want to go above the second apron to, you know what I mean, to keep him. So from that state, to keep him, like, I'm not against going above the second apron, but I don't think that he's the solution to our troubles. Just to be honest, I in some ways I think, like, and I understand that the rebounding from Triple J is an issue, but Cat is a fantastic rebounder, and I think that allows you to slide OG to the 3. And if you bring, let's say, Deuce into the starting lineup as a legitimate point of attack defender, I think that solves a lot of our issues from a continuity standpoint, even with Brunson and Towns in the starting lineup. So I think that lineup would make a lot of sense, but again, that's not the topic of conversation, I guess. But I don't know. I just, to me, that I would be hesitant to give that guy an extension and pay him $35-40 million a season, because I don't think he's that type of player. I think at his salary that he's making now, yeah, that's decent money, and I'm not sure he's worthy. Like, I'm not sure that his play has somebody like clamoring to pay him $35 million a season, $40 million a season. I don't know what his market would be, but I don't think you take the chance on it either. I think you do one of the two things. Either you deal him and get rid of that contract extension possibility, and you have to make the same decision on Mitchell Robinson, by the way, or you extend him and then you keep him, and then this is your pretty much your core moving forward, because I think it kind of locks you in.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that the new coach can get more out of Bridges and play him differently, right? But at the same time, the Knicks are top heavy. I just don't think I just think out of those top four, I do think one of them has to go so that we can have some depth. I think it's going to be very hard to lock into those four core players and have top line depth. You can have depth, but they're not going to be top of the line guys, right? So I think that's the decision the Knicks have to make. They may feel compelled to sign Bridges because of what they gave up for him. But what kind of bench you're going to have? You know, you might have a bench full of minimum guys, maybe one guy with the taxpayer mid-level exception. You know what I mean? We'll see. I'm hopeful that the new guy will get more out of him, but I would like just 2 or 3 top players and the rest kind of more role players, whether that's Bridges or as some in the chat's talking about OG. I would be more inclined for it to be Bridges over OG, but I still feel that we didn't see Bridges in his best light. And I do think with a different coach, playing him in a different role, we just might. All right, let's get to, go ahead, Geoff.
One last thought on Bridges. I think what's disappointing about McCall mostly is his lack of physicality on both ends of the court. He's not a very physical defender, and he doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. He seems to shy away from contact, and he's just not a very physical player. And I don't know if that's the way that he plays every game, because he's not soft. I mean, he plays literally every game. The guy's an Iron Man, but he's just not he's not the type of player that gets into you defensively, and he's not the type of player who's going to get into you on offense and draw a bunch of fouls and a bunch of contact. He's going to use that fadeaway in space, and it almost is like he's allergic to contact. And I think that we need more physicality from our point of attack defender.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think he's a point of attack defender. Listen, he was at one point top 3, top 4 in defensive player of the year when he was with Phoenix. I just don't think him being a point of attack defender, you're going to see him in his, best light. You know, when he played with Phoenix, was he a physical defender or was he using his speed and his length? Like whatever he was doing then, unless he slowed down and he's getting older, I would like to see more of that. I'm not buying into the narrative of him not being a physical offensive player. This is his game. This is his game. You know, maybe this is how he developed this game because he is a slight person. Like your body type does play into the type of player and game that you develop, right? You think about Julius Randle, he doesn't really have a lot of hops and well, if you saw him in high school, he did. But, he didn't really have a lot of hops and quickness or whatever. So he used his strength. That's how he developed his game, bouncing off of people, creating space. Bridges is a slight guy. It's possible. This is how he was able to get his shot off. This is how he developed his game, being able to create that space so that he can get his shot off. So I don't see it as, to me, I don't see it as avoiding contact as much as I see it as this is him. And if you look back, like if you told me that he used to average 6 free throws and now with the Knicks, he's averaging 2, or he used to be a guy who got to the line a lot and now with the Knicks, he's not getting to the line. Like, yo, what's up? What's changing? But correct me if I'm wrong. This has been his game. This is his game. You know what I mean? So me personally, I'm not going to read too much in it. This is his game. I'm not going to get on him for and then want him to be something that he's not. So Yeah, Anthony, he's 6'8", but this is his game. You know, the mid range, the turnaround. That's Mikal Bridges. It's always been that way.
So I was gonna say maybe
Mhm.
him avoiding contact is why he stays unhurt. So it's yeah, he could probably throw himself in there and get banged up with the other guys, but then there's a high probability of him getting hurt also playing that way. So maybe that's why he's able to be the quote unquote Iron Man who doesn't get hurt because he avoids the contact. So we got to pick what we want. Do we want him to be a you know a tough player who runs into the chest of everybody else and get hurt, miss games, or do we want him to be available? It's up to us. Or it's up to him, I guess. He picked to be available.
Nah, I didn't see that. She said, and that's fine, Stephanie, but you can't tell me you didn't see him purposely shy away from contact, especially. I mean, I'll look for that. I mean, because there's a difference between you playing your game and purposefully shying away from contact. Or is that just us reading into it? I don't know. I'm just saying I don't buy into it. I'm not saying it's not a legit or fair narrative.
Queen, you asked the question, would we trade Bridges?
Or sign him to an extension.
Or sign him to an extension. My question to your question is trade him for who?
More depth.
More depth.
I don't have a specific person. Just more depth. I think 3 players, top players on a team is enough. But
your 3 top players are Brunson, Cat, and OG.
For me, it is.
Okay.
For me, it is. I do think Bridges playing his natural position defensively. I just think he would be better. But just going by what I've seen, I think OG is underrated. I know he's making a lot of money. I know if he's the guy you trade, you can really have some really nice, pieces coming back. But I like OG. I mean, if I had to choose, I would choose him over Bridges. Yeah, I mean that's fair. Can OG be a third guy on a title contender? His offense is shaky. Bridges' offense is it's a little shaky too,
What's with OG falling all the time though? What is that?
We'll get to him.
Yeah, we'll get to OG. That's right.
Let me just make sure.
But Queen, that's a tough one though. I was gonna say that's a tough one, because I don't know. Re-signing Bridges, that's something the Knicks gonna have to. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, you can't let him walk. You either have to sign him or you have to trade him. I mean, you can't give up. In other words, we're not going to have salary cap space. It's not like you could just say, "Oh, we're going to let him go so we can sign this other person with all cap room." Like the decisions are 1A and 1B. 1A, keep him and sign him to the extension. 1B, trade him somewhere. I mean, there's not any other option with it as far as you can't mismanage assets and just let him walk out the door.
Right.
That's
yeah. I think that listen, Leon Rose is not gonna give up on these 2. I mean, you can count OG too, but Towns and Bridges, I don't think he's gonna give up on them after 1 year. I think Towns is gonna be here next season. I think Bridges is gonna be here next season. I don't think he's given up after 1 season on those guys. When you fired the coach, which is basically saying you think it's the coach's fault. So, to get to trade Bridges is to kind of admit that it was a mistake. No.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Depends what you get for it.
Okay. True. Parish Duggar Bridges in a set plays offense would destroy teams. Yeah.
Yet I think this Knicks team is best when it's playing out in the open court, on offense especially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Queen, you was gonna read the chat. Queen, Anthony D, I'm putting this up. Is Nas Reed a free agent? I feel like he signed an extension last season, didn't he?
I think he's up for an extension if I'm
Is
not
he?
mistaken.
I feel like they just signed him though. I looked that up, but yes, it's
Yeah. Yeah, expectation. Every year we want to get rid of people and get a whole new team. When teams like the Pacers, Cavs, and Boston's been playing with the same team and getting better,
where,
better because of it. I mean, that's fair.
Where's the Cavs in Boston now?
Right. Getting better how? Yeah. Yeah, that's
But remember, Boston made big trades to bring in KP and Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
They didn't stand pat to get their championship. They made the big moves, and that's what crafted them into, like, if they had just stayed with Marcus Smart and that whole core that they had, I don't think they ever win the championship.
How quickly we forget. And the Cavs, the Cavs made big trade too, but it didn't get them anywhere. I mean, the guy they got from what's his name from Atlanta, DeAndre Hunter. That was a huge movement. I thought that put him over the top.
Yeah,
but
the Cavs thought, yes, production, but they brought in DeAndre Hunter. They didn't just stay pat at the trade deadline. They brought in DeAndre Hunter.
And you have to wonder how much that broken toe by Garland affected his performance against the team like Indiana too. I mean, and injuries are part of it. I'm not saying they're not, but against a team like Indiana, that's probably the worst possible thing that you could have, because they are going to run you into the ground, and we've seen it.
Oh, okay. Oh, you said they lost, but they got better. I mean, anyway.
So Nas Reed is under contract for next year.
Right.
You know what? No. It looks like it's a play option. Okay, play option for next year.
Play option
for next season.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Josh Hart, who, by the way, had his best statistical season of his career. 37.6 minutes, 13.6 points, career high, 9.6 rebounds, career high, 5.9 assists, career high. I want to say 1.5 steals is his career high. I believe so. On shooting splits of 52.5%, 33.3%, 77.6%, play efficiency rating of 16.6, true shooting percentage of 61.5. Josh Hart has been another lightning rod, right? For the, for the fan base. Some love him, Well, I think most of us appreciate him. A lot felt that he needed to come off the bench. Defense wasn't great, right? And in the playoffs, he just wasn't himself, but it's not Josh Hart's fault that he was put in a position that probably wasn't best suited for him. You know what I mean? I think if you take a player who's probably a 25, 28-minute player and you play them 37 minutes, there are going to be times when it shows because they're just not in a role that really fits their talents and their skill set. And I think that's what happened with that's what happened with Josh Hart. And I think that was on Tom Thibodeau more than it was on Josh Hart. So to me, do I take off points and say he didn't meet expectations because the coach put him in a position that wasn't best for him? I don't think so. I think I'm gonna give him a B plus, and the reason he doesn't get an A is I felt like there was just some mental mistakes that had nothing to do with the role that he was in. And I think particularly in the playoffs, particularly in the Indiana series, the backdoor cuts, particularly, I'm like, what is in critical moments? I'm like, what is going on with Josh Hart? So I'm gonna say B plus. I'm not gonna ding the guy because he messed up the spacing. That's on Thibodeau to take him out. When what he does bring doesn't offset the spacing. And I think that's the other argument, right? Oh, he doesn't bring spacing. We need to just take him out. There are games when, he makes a case to stay in there. But then there are other times when he just doesn't. And that's on Tom Thibodeau to take him out as opposed to double down, on his minutes. Anyway, I think we started with Ajay the last time, did we not? Yeah. So Geoff, just your thoughts on Josh Hart, whether he met, didn't meet, or exceeded or however you want to assess him.
Boy, Josh is such a difficult player because in so many ways he exceeded my expectations. I mean, he set the franchise record for triple doubles in a season. He actually wasn't horrific from 3-point territory for him. 33.3% is about as, if you told me at the beginning of the year that that's what he was going to do, I would have taken that. I mean, across the board, the best season of his career from a statistical standpoint. But then sometimes just like the careless turnovers, the ball watching that leads to the backdoor cuts, the technical fouls because you're arguing with the ref, or the not getting back because you're arguing Josh Hart can make you his favorite player and your most hated player on the same possession. That's how mercurial he can be. And I just think that he's not in the right role. I think, as you said, I think if we had Josh Hart 25 minutes a night coming off the bench and producing what he's producing, I think that's ideal. Josh Hart, 38 minutes per game as a starter, not so much. And part of that was he's probably our second best rebounder for most of the season because Robinson was shelved for 3/4 of it. So, you needed rebounding to come from somewhere. And this is a guy who got you 10 boards a game, and Cat got you 14.
That's
and
fair.
You didn't get anything from anybody else. Right. And so, rebounding is a big part of finishing off defensive possessions. So, but I think we have to either find a way to get a legitimate stretch four in here who can stretch the defense and slide OG to the 3 and keep McCall at the 2 and bring Josh off the bench.
Rebound, Geoff.
Yeah.
And rebound can't be your only rebound. And you bring up a really good point. I'm pretty sure that was the reason why he was in the game to rebound. Like Towns can't do it by himself, and OG is a poor rebounder for his position.
OG's a poor rebounder, and so is Bridges, right? Neither one of those guys hits the glass very well. And so, you kind of had to make do, and he was the best solution for rebound because he's a fantastic rebounder, best rebounding small in the league, maybe the best rebounding small we've ever seen, if you think about it. I mean, I know Charles Barkley was only 6'4", but man was a power forward. It's not the same thing as Josh Hart at his size getting in there and rebounding like a 5 basically. Very frustrating player in a different role. I think he would shine. I think if he was your 6th man, I think that's ideal. I'll give him a B for ball watching.
Yep, Ajay.
So Josh Hart, well, I mean, I have to grade him not based on what he could be, obviously on what he was for us, right? And he was in the starting lineup, so unfortunately I have to grade him as part of the starting lineup, right? And for that, Josh Hart came in way short of my expectation. He wasn't he wasn't good enough for this team. Yes, and he's actually one of my favorite players on the team because of the effort he put in, and at his size, that like there's certain things you could almost count on him to do in terms of the hustle play and the grabbing the rebounds and all that stuff. But the team, I think, has grown to a point where we need a little bit more from Josh Hart than that. So he didn't grow with the team. He's still, I guess, the same old Josh Hart doing the same old things he did last season, and in some cases even worse. He's a great rebounder. He does all the the dirty stuff he does, right? But he's a liability on offense, and he's a liability on defense. He's a liability on both ends of the court. Yes, the coach has something to do with it because you have somebody with Josh Hart's skills and capabilities. You have to play him strategically. We didn't do that. We counted on him. You had him closing the games. Sometimes they had Josh Hart in a game where we needed a 3-pointer. He's not the guy you want in the game when you need a 3-pointer. Okay, so he's a guy when you need to grab a rebound, when you need to make when there's a last minute shot, you need that guy to grab the rebound to save the game, and so on and so forth. He fell way short of my expectation. I expected him to, he's growing with this core. I expected him to be better this season, set the tone, and he did that sometimes, but he needed to be more consistent with it. And in the playoffs, forget it. He was completely discombobulated in the playoffs. That could be a result.
All through the playoffs or a particular series?
I think. I can't remember one great game Josh Hart had in the playoffs. And the Indiana series, he was completely
Indiana
a non-factor. Sure. But it's not like there's no game in the previous series.
But okay.
Listen, in the Queen, how many times we watching the game? I'm texting you in all cap. Why is Josh Hart on the court at this time?
No, I agree with that, but I think a lot of times a player's mistakes, particularly in certain moments, stick out, and it just colors everything else.
That's true. It kind of blinds you from everything.
Yeah.
And it's probably not fair, but the fact that he's one of the guys who's been here the longest, so he really should be a more important part of this core. It should be when you're talking about. You notice you like, so out of the 5 starters, I think Josh Hart's going to be traded. If they could find a taker for him, he's going to be out of here. Because yes, he does a lot of the little things, but sometimes the little things is just not enough. You need a player who'll do the little things and then some. Somebody who'll do the little things and then can block a shot, or can guarantee, can play defense, cannot allow the same backdoor cut play after play after play. You need somebody who's more aware, and to his credit though, when I've been watching some of those games, I've still had a lot of them saved. I don't know why, while the final is still going on, but Josh Hart, I think one of the reasons why, that's one game in particular, or one play in particular, where he missed the backdoor cut, is because he's focusing on grabbing the rebound. Like, he's looking for when's the shot going up so he could start attacking the board. And then the guy he's checking is already dissipated, and he have no idea where that guy is. So he loses control of that. So, like I said, sometimes you need a guy who could do what he does, but can give you something else. Could be a great rebounder and a better 3-point shooter, or a great rebounder or a better defender. He's got to have something else in his bag. And, for that, because he didn't develop into that so far, I feel like he missed the mark. So I would probably give him like probably a C plus or something like that, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anthony D said maybe it's because they're weak inside and he's got to compensate. Size 9. Hart also had a
and,
Bum,
and that's
bum.
possible. That's possible too. What Anthony D said, but we can only grade him on what he did, whatever the reason is, right? But the
Or
final.
you can grade him on a curve. You're choosing not to, which is
Oh
fine.
yeah.
Which is fine.
He did shoot 37% from three in the postseason, and he did, and on a decent volume of attempts. So I think it's disingenuous to say that Hart didn't do anything throughout the playoffs. Check the logs of the Boston series, and I think you'll be forgetting that he had some pretty good performances there, and he also had some pretty good performances against Detroit. If you want to say that he was disappointing in the Pacers series, absolutely, I'll agree with you there. But to simply wash away his entire postseason, I don't think that's accurate. I don't think we get out of the first two rounds of the playoffs if we don't have Josh Hart doing what he did.
I don't think I disagree, Geoff. So I
But
mean,
you gotta
no.
look at the log though. Look at his production though.
No. I'm not gonna look at the log. My eye test tells me that there are two games I could tell you Mikal Bridges saved us those games. There's a couple of games where I could tell you Karl Anthony Towns won us those games, or Jalen Brunson. I can't think of one game in the playoffs where Josh Hart we won that game.
But he doesn't have. But hold on.
That
because he didn't win you the game doesn't mean he didn't have a solid playoff run against Detroit and Boston. Just because he didn't win you the game, listen, and that's fine. Like, I'm not arguing. Like, we all have our own opinions on on Josh Hart. I will say this: every team, in my opinion, needs a Josh Hart. You put Josh Hart in his position where he's supposed to be, he's one of the best role players in the entire NBA, in my opinion. But he's not a 30. And listen, we haven't even talked about roster construction. It's part of the roster construction that he had to, part of the reason where, anyway, Thibodeau chose to put him there because there were no rebounders there. So that was, Thibodeau didn't have to make that choice, but he chose that, listen, we need to double down on our rebounding. We don't have it with OG. We don't have it with Bridges. We need to have a rebounder in here. So he chose to go with Josh Hart. But you get rebounding from Josh Hart. You get offensive rebounding from Josh Hart. You get rebounding and pushing it up the court for transition points from Josh Hart. You get playmaking from Josh Hart in the half court offense. He can create shots for others. So I hear you. I don't think he had a great series in Indiana, but for me personally, that's not going to cloud my overall opinion on Josh Hart. He didn't have a good series against Indiana.
So rewatch Game 6 against Boston. They had a 10-point, 11 rebound, 11 assist game when we blew out the Celtics. Look at that game and tell me he didn't have a good game. And that's a ludicrous assessment.
Geoff, I can't think of a game right now, but there are games where Josh Hart had 4 points, 6 rebounds, 2 turnovers. No. Queen, excuse me. No, there are games where he had those stats, right? But he impacted the game to the point that we won. So if I look at the log of that game, I'm telling you, Josh Hart was trash. But when you watch the game, he actually did all the little things to help us win that game. So I judge by the same way every game. So I could look at, there's some games he has 18 points and he wins the game. But there are some games where he has 4 points where he's the reason why we won the game. So that's why I'm not looking at.
Do you have to be the reason why you won the game?
No,
like
he doesn't have to be.
How many games was OG the reason we won the game? How many times was
there are a couple of them. There are a couple of OG games.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see Josh Hart is gonna get graded the hardest. Listen, no. I'm not. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. There's something about I'm not sure what the expectation is of Josh Hart. Listen, the Indiana series wasn't his finest moment, but I don't think he has to win the game to say, in order to be able to say he had a good playoff series because he won us the game. He doesn't have to win us the game. You got to do your part. You got to do your part. That's it. You know, do your part.
Okay, he's right. Did he do his part in that series?
But you said the entire playoffs. I agree with you. I didn't think Indiana was his best series.
And again, it's maybe the coach put him didn't put him in the position to be his best, but he was not his best. And I expected a lot more from him. This is why I say like he missed the mark. This is why it's not that he's getting graded the hardest, is because to me he should have been better, because he could have been better. Maybe he was not. They didn't put him in a position to be better. More impactful on the game, a better defender.
Yeah, he definitely could have been a better defender.
Better defender, or even a better, like Josh Hart passed on a lot of shots, man. I would prefer he takes those shots and miss them. At least give it a try, but don't pat, because sometimes he pass up the shots and it disrupts everything. Like we end up with an expired shot clock or something like that. Like that happens so many times during the season. You know what I'm saying? And at some point, you got to be like, you know what? I'm throwing it up there. You're a basketball player. You can't shoot the three-pointer. Like, what do you say, Geoff? He shot 33% from three. Why are you afraid to shoot the ball if 1 out of 3 you're going to hit?
Stop.
Throw it up 6 times. You hit it a couple of times. He passed on a lot of shot, and then the defense have a chance to set up when he does that. So the offense get all discombobulated. So I expected better from him. It's not that he's a good player. I like him, but I expected better, and I graded him.
That's fine. Nobody is arguing that. It was just that it was just a pushback on the fact that he didn't have a good playoffs. That's the pushback. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm just saying one series doesn't make the entire playoffs. What is that, like recency bias? Like you that's what you remember because that's what's fresh. But yeah, I mean, in terms of his the defense wasn't great, but this guy had his best statistical year ever, playing out of his role.
So I mean, the Knicks, they have to find a way to, have him coming off the bench or play less minutes, like you say. He doesn't necessarily have to come off the bench, but find a suitable another player. Like, and that I guess that's all.
He needs to come off the bench. Listen, this is what somebody said.
It depends on who you get in the starting lineup. Maybe you can't find somebody. You have to find somebody to put in the starting lineup for him to come off the bench. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
or maybe a coach. I forgot who I was listening to. Shout out to all the content creators in Knick land who said, Mike Malone has consistently figured out a way to create an offense and create space with Gordon, Russell Westbrook, a few other players who are not good shooters, so maybe you get a coach if Josh Hart stays in the starting lineup that can get more out of him, and you can not necessarily more out of him, but more out of the team in terms of spacing, or he goes to the bench,
And that it's going to be tough to, when we talk about roster construction, I guess we can go over that. Like, how do you improve the bench, and like what pieces do you have to give up in order to improve that bench? So we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get there.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the top four. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we could talk about that later. All right, so let me I didn't get to all of, let's see. David Smith said, I want Josh traded. I just want Josh in a position where he's at his best. They put Nostalgic Nick, they put the center on Hart. He was no threat. Anthony D, he's the second or third best trade acquisition in team history. Wow. Okay. All right. Dish Dash, Jay Hart is not a starter, 6-man. Anthony D, he averaged 6 assists. Keith Turner, exactly role player, not a starter. The X Productions, he could be the best 6-man. The potential is there for him. Yeah. I mean, he came off the bench last year, right? Believe so.
Well, last year was strange because remember we had a lot of injuries, so
Okay.
he started for like half the year.
He's a glamorized role player. I mean, he is a role player, but I don't understand what glamorized means. Let's not act like he's not out there working. Okay. Hart is a liability on both ends most nights. I mean, listen, I would be careful about offensive liability because he also brings other things on the offensive end, right? So we went through this with Mitch too, offensive liability in the sense of you can't throw the ball, into him, but there are other things that he does on the offensive end as well. So if you want to say a shooting liability, okay.
He's a bit hesitant, right? And which, like I said, when he passes up the shot, Queen, it disrupts the offense. I would rather him take 33% is not terrible. I would prefer he takes those shots, those open threes, to because once you start hitting one or two of them, now the defense have to adjust, and it frees up everybody else.
Yeah, but this is the thing with Josh Hart. The teams are not going to adjust. Even if he hits, teams are not going to adjust because, first of all, his volume is not high enough. If he takes 4 and he hits 4, teams will live with that rather than coming out of their base defense.
Nick Nurse had to adjust in Philadelphia.
Right.
In the playoffs, round 1 last year.
Yeah, he did. But that was Josh Hart going wild. Like, that was Josh Hart every single game knocking down the 3-point shot. Because so he would, so I agree with you. He would have to do it game after game after game after game. Like one game of Josh Hart hitting, they're like, nah, that's it. If he gonna hit his threes tonight, we're gonna live and die with that. More so than we're gonna live and die with Jalen Brunson. So I think it would take a lot for teams to come out of it like it did with Nick Nurse. I mean, he was just hot for the entire series.
With Queen, I mean, 33% is not terrible. If he's taking those shots, listen, man, teams will adjust. If he's hitting them at 33% clip, like 1 out of 3 3-pointers is hitting, the team's gonna have to adjust their defense, man.
But this is the thing: you got to pick your poison. So you got to say to yourself, okay, if we now start staying home, how much space does that give Cat? How much space does that give Brunson? We're going to stay home on everybody. I think you pick your poison.
And that's fine, but at least let the other teams, let them figure it out, right? Don't figure it out for them. When you don't take the shot, you figure it out for them.
No doubt about it. Take the shot and let I'm not saying that he shouldn't take the shot. I'm just saying it's not automatic that if he takes the shots, the teams are gonna come out of their defense.
But it's automatic. If he doesn't take it, they won't. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. Like you can't. You got to try, man.
Okay. All right. Anything else on Josh before we move to OG? All right. Let's move quickly now. We're already at 10 o'clock. Let's move quicker. I don't know if we're going to get to the coach. We're going to get to the coaches.
Well, we
gotta go in a few minutes. I got to do so.
I'm with
10 o'clock.
We have all summer.
Yeah. Well,
if we don't get to the coach, we get Probably
Well,
next
I
time
want
we do a
to
show, we'll already have a new coach. So
probably. All right, OG Anunoby, 36.6 minutes, 18 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.9 blocks on shooting splits of 47.6%, 37.2%, 81% from the free throw line. Play efficiency rating of 16.5, true shooting percentage of 61.1%. And I was surprised that he didn't make the first or second all defensive team. I think narratives matter, man. At one point in the season, what's his name? Draymond Green made such a big deal, like he should make the team. And next thing you know, people are talking about him. I think narratives matter, man. I think the Knicks have to kind of get out there when it comes to OG. The Knicks, the fan base, somebody else, whoever, because this guy is just one of the best defensively, in my opinion. Ajay, just your thoughts on OG Anunoby?
So OG Anunoby, he meet he met and slightly exceeded expectations. I thought he played great defense all season, even though I mean sometimes just the guy you're guarding is just better and there's not much you could do. But for most night, the defensive effort was there from him. So I thought he was great on that end of the court. And this season, and I think the fact that he stayed healthy all season, you could that could probably be one of the reasons why on offense you see how much better he could be on offense. Of course, he needs to be a little more consistent, which again, I don't know if that has to do with the coach or whoever's calling the plays. Probably get him more involved in the offense. They didn't call a lot of plays for him, but when the ball found its way to him, sometimes when he's aggressive, it's like he was able to be successful on that end of the court as well. So on both ends of the floor, I thought he did a pretty good job. And therefore, he, like I said, slightly met by expectations, especially on the offensive end. On offense, he exceeded a little bit because he did a little bit better than I expected him to do. On defense, he's like right where he needed to be. So grade wise, I will probably give him between B and B plus, somewhere around there.
Okay, Geoff?
Yeah, I like the job that OG did this year. I mean, I think he met expectations as far as I'm concerned. I thought he could probably be about an 18 point per game scorer. He's not a great rebounder. His TS percentage was good. His 3-point shooting percentage was good until the corners of the playoffs were bad. But I mean, for the regular season, a good job. He had his struggles sometimes defensively, but I think he was asked a lot was put on his and Bridges' plate as far as what to do defensively, and so they were stretched to the limit at times. But there were times when he was just absolutely phenomenal. I love the way that he seems to guard 1.5 players every possession, it seems like. So I like OG. It's crazy because if the Knicks are going to change this roster up, odds are that it's one of Bridges or Anunoby that's going to be moving out, in my opinion. And so I'm not sure if he's going to be here long term, but I think if he gives you this kind of production moving forward, he'll have earned this contract, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think OG exceeded my expectations. I didn't expect this offensively from him at all. I thought he would be just a great defensive player that would hit corner threes for us, play the best wing play on the other team. And even though he was the highest paid player, I didn't have an expectation that he would score a lot of points for us. And he really surprised me with his offensive game. And, you could say it's not consistent. I don't know if his opportunities were consistent either, right? But I was really impressed with just how he's improved on the offensive end, posting up, driving in, pulling up for the mid range, the corner threes, just the versatility from OG. I think there's more. I think there's more there. Yeah, he fell a lot. Yeah, his handle wasn't that great. Yeah, he runs like he has on a shitty diaper sometimes, but um he exceeded my expectations. And I don't between those two, if one of them had to go, him or Bridges, to me it's a tough call, because I just think Bridges has more upside offensively and ball handling wise. But OG, man, he's just defensively, he's just something else. Um anyway, we got to move quickly, so I do want to just get into the chat. Seeing him drive and bully himself to the basket and score 20 plus points impressed me. JJ needs to work on his dribble and his hands. Yeah, we getting on Brunson for making that pass, but it's like, come on, OG, it's just a pass. Like,
Handle it.
Right. Keith Turner, OG was worth every bit of his contract. All right. AD, OG wasn't locked down all year. He got better as the year went on. Yeah. And Bridges too. He had a pocket where he was really good and like, okay, yeah. And then he kind of fell off a little bit. I value a wing that plays both sides of the ball. Vaughn Allen, OG, better right now. Defense more consistent between the two. Okay. All right. Anything else on OG? Nope. All right. Moving fast. I know, Geoff, you got it.
I'm all right. We're good.
All right. Karl Anthony Towns, counting stats, 35 minutes, 24 point. Was that right? 24.4 points, 12.8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks on shooting splits of 50, 40, 80. Not 50, 40, 90 quite, Geoff, right? 52.6% from the field, 42% from three. I think it was 4.7 attempts, if I'm not mistaken. 82.9% from the free throw line, play efficiency rating of 23.4, true shooting percentage of 63, third team All-NBA All-Star starter. Another lightning rod player on this team. If you accept him for who he is, you probably were pretty happy with Towns because you weren't expecting a lot of defense from him anyway. But if you didn't know how bad the defense was, you was able to see it up close and personal. Geoff, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on Karl Anthony Towns this season?
I love Karl Anthony Towns, which is so weird because I'm usually all about defense first players, but there's something about him and Brunson too that they're just so much fun to watch because their skill level is so high and they almost make it look effortless. I mean, here's a guy and he gets, his defense is not good, but he gets the knock as being a soft player, or that's what I heard about him before he was a Knick. I didn't get that at all. Here's a guy who played most of the second half of the season with an injured thumb. His knees were clearly bothering him. He played through it. He accepted the grind. He had, multiple playoff games where he just kind of down the stretch took over and was this unstoppable force. And so, he's a little bit maddening at time because I there are times when you don't think I don't think he's aggressive enough. But I think that the Knicks can do more to make him more of a focal point in the offense and maybe get that out of him a little bit better. But you know, I'm going to grade him on what he is. I mean, and for what he is, I thought he might have had possibly the best season of his career.
Thanks.
And I mean, he might could argue 1 or 2 seasons when he was a little younger, but as far as the stakes are concerned, he made it to the Western Conference Finals the year before, and he made it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So clearly, he's making an impact on his teams, and he's doing a great job. For a long time, he was tops in the league in rebounding. I think he got passed later in the season, but still had a phenomenal year, a phenomenal impact. I was really impressed with his game. I just love watching how skillful he is and what a great shot maker he is. I mean, a 52, 40, 80 guy. I mean, that's something. And yeah, does he have his flaws? Absolutely. But I think the Knicks are better team for having him on the roster. And I thought he had a terrific season. I would give him an A.
All right. Ajay?
So Cat exceeded my expectations, and even though he turned out to be a worse defender than I thought he was. Like, he's actually much worse, but offensively he's literally unstoppable. Like, when he had a bad game, it's just because he just wasn't involved, but when he was involved, like nobody could stop him except Tobias Harris for some reason. But otherwise, he had like, and I agree with Geoff, he had a tremendous season, probably the best season of his career. I hated the trade mainly because I wanted to see our team last year. You know, I felt we had a good enough team. I really didn't think we needed to change anything. But now that we have him on the team, I'm very happy and impressed with what he brings to the team. Defense, he's just gonna have to try to get better at this. And I'm not trying to hate at, he's been in the league 10 years. He can't improve. I think he can improve, especially with defense. It's most of defense is about effort and basketball IQ. Sometimes you have to understand the game. You have to read the game that's being played around you. You've been in the league 10 years, so the game has slowed down for you to a certain point where you can read what's going on. So if he could slightly improve his defense, well, I mean, he really needs to improve it a lot. But if he could at least make that a little bit better next season, I think we're going to have a better Cat. I think, he did a tremendous job. As Geoff mentioned, there are some games that he took over. Like, he literally put the team on his shoulder and said, I'm bringing this dub home. And he delivered many games throughout the season. And even in the playoffs, he did that a couple of times as well. So we don't just have one clutch guy. We have a couple of clutch players on the team. And for that, I will, I don't remember what grade Geoff gave him, but I will give him an A minus grade. There is room for improvement on defense. He really needs to try to figure out how to get, better. But yes, he exceeded my expectation. I didn't know he could deliver in a clutch like he did so many games this season.
Yeah, I think he exceeded my expectations as well. It was just great watching him up close. Offensively, the bag is deep. Defensively, I think it's a combination between lack of effort some games, poor schemes for him other games, and to me, just defensive IQ. I just think you got to keep it simple for him, because there were times he just did not look like he knew what he was doing on the defensive end. I thought he was really good in the playoffs. I thought we could have went through him more, particularly in that Indiana series. But there were some games where he was just maddening, turning the ball over. I don't know if that was the Detroit series, the Boston, but there was just a few games where I just thought he was just maddening. But, we needed the rebounding. You know what I mean? So so we kept him in the game. I think some games he's not as aggressive. Sometimes You know, maybe that's Brunson, maybe that's the coach not calling plays, maybe that's Cat, himself. But overall, I thought he was good. He was really, really good. And he got better. Some games he was just brilliant in terms of mixing it up. I think it was one game against Boston where the 3-pointer, the trail three, the posting up, the drive, it was just like a really everything was working and on display. On display that game. We'll see. I think the new coach will have to be a defensive savant and just kind of figure out how we can have a really good defense with both Brunson and Towns. To Jeff's point, and I heard other content creators, maybe we have to play, a little zone to hide those guys. But I always say, if you're going to be a mess on one side of the ball, then you really, really, really need to offset it on the other side. And him and Brunson do. Both of those guys do.
Queen, I wanted to add a little something too.
Sure.
As good as he was on offense, right? I think he could be even better, because I complained about this all season. He's not shooting enough threes. Okay, he makes those threes. Like, he really, sometimes you realize it takes a lot more out of you to drive the ball and get banged. You run into like 2, 3, 4 elbows on the way, a couple of knees, your rib get hit, then you fall on the floor, and then it's a disadvantage on the other end because the other team's already 5-on-4. Then if you shoot the three, which he's shooting 44% from three or some crazy number. Like, he really should, they really should set him up, pick and pop. I mean, he could be so much better on offense and use less energy to be that better. Do you know what I'm saying? So this is why I don't understand why they didn't do that more often, because there are two great things here. You get more points when he hits, and then he burns less energy doing it.
Yeah.
So he could get better. He could get better on offense than he actually was, as good as he was.
Yeah. And I think also, we talk about we want a coach that can maximize Cat. Let's not act like he maximize him more. Maximize him and Brunson together more, because Cat had one of his best seasons. So maybe he was maximized to 78% or something like that, maybe 80, and we want 85, whatever, and we want another coach to come and take it up to like 99. But it wasn't like he wasn't, optimized at all. He had his best season this year with the Knicks.
But isn't it saying something that he had his best season and we think he can be even better?
Absolutely.
And that's every one of our eye tests says that there's meat left on the bone for him. So, and some of that is internal and maybe some of that is external with coaching, in my opinion.
Correct.
Jeff, and that's why my grade to him is A-, because I think there's room for improvement. And if he could, he could be better on offense, and he could improve a little bit on defense, block some shots, and move his feet a little better, then that's where he gets up to the A+.
And I think that's another thing that's frustrating with Towns. And again, it could be that the schemes are simpler. Like, there are some games where he's like hitting every rotation, and you're like, what the hell, yo? And then there's other games where he's lost, or at least he looks lost. So it's just difficult to explain. But again, it could be the games where he looks great is where the schemes are real simple for him. All right, let's see. Cat will never be better on defense. He is what I call him, a bigger Obi. Okay.
No, he's a much better rebounder than Obi. Obi Toppin's not a bad player, but Cat is on such a different stratosphere than Obi. That's not even a fair comparison. I'm sorry. I love your takes most of the time, but I have to take umbrage with that one, man.
Yeah.
I think that's totally disrespectful to Towns' game.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't. Maybe he's just talking about like individual defense or pick and roll defense. A lot of people don't put rebounding as part of defense, but it is. You need to close out those possessions. Rebound build NYK. Cat is the best big man shooter that I have ever watched. Okay. All right. Cat is the worst defensive big in the NBA. Okay.
Is he worse than Jokic though? Jokic is really bad. Jokic is so terrible defender.
I don't know what the numbers. I don't know what the numbers say. Cat was the only plus of plus minus in the Pacers series.
I didn't know that.
Cat had the best plus minus of any Knicks starter this year by far.
Didn't know that.
Okay. Ajay loved them threes.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
That's his answer to everything.
I think. Listen, he's shooting 42-43%. Listen, man, that means somewhere between 4. If you shoot 10 threes, you're gonna hit 4. Somewhere between 4 and 5 of them. That's good enough for me, man. Take at least 10 threes a game.
Okay. Yeah.
Queen in the Florida game, Queen. I know what you're gonna say. He's not. Don't force him up, of course.
Right, Vaughn Allen. Jokic is at least where he is supposed to be in their scheme. Like sometimes I say to Cat, "Yo, just be where you're supposed to be."
Yeah.
You know.
He was out of position, play after play after play. Like,
yeah. Anthony D. How them threes work out for Boston? Yeah, you got to read the game. But I agree with you. You can't be taking 2 or 3. But yeah.
well, I could ask Anthony, how'd they work out for the Pacers? They did. So they don't work out for one team, work out for the other. I mean, what does that mean?
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna have to. We're not gonna be able to get. I wanted to talk. I didn't notice. I should have been more mindful of the time.
Queen, why? We have plenty of shows. We have next show. We do the bench.
Certain topics are timely. So right now, Mike Brown, Taylor Jenkins is timely. By Thursday, we could have a coach, and it's no longer even a topic.
That's all right.
That's
fine. So we talk about the coach we have.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm trying to be like, trying to follow the news cycle. You know what I mean? Like whatever's in the news, that's, talk about, what's our perspective or what's going on in the news, Knick news, I should say. Let's be clear about that. Knick news.
Man, speaking of Knick news.
Knick news.
Knick news. Speaking of Knick news, shout out to OKC and the Pacers. That's got to be annoying as hell. You're in the finals, and the headline every day is about the Knicks coaching search. Like, meanwhile, you still playing, and they still, but well,
they I would think that they so locked in they don't even know.
Yeah, I hope for their sake.
They don't even know what they're talking about. Yeah. All right. Any last words? And just briefly, do you have a preference between Mike Malone and Jenkins? Obviously, we're not going to, get into it.
Is it Mike Malone or
Mike Brown?
I'm sorry, Mike Brown.
Mike Brown. Oh.
I prefer we keep looking if those are the two candidates. Look, they're both good coaches. I don't really see how either one is a significant upgrade or improvement from Thibodeau. Maybe just a new voice in the locker room. And if that's fine, if that's the case, then I would prefer Jenkins to Brown, but neither one has been outstanding in the playoffs. I mean, I guess Brown has a winning record in the playoffs, but he coached LeBron for 5 years, 6 years, and never won the championship with them. So I think that's a red flag as far as he's concerned. And Jenkins, he's a good coach, but I think he has his issues as well. I mean, they fired 5 of his offensive coaches and brought in 2 new offensive coaches, and so he was in kind of a strange situation there. But I mean, he's never been to the conference finals as a coach either. So, you know, you get rid of Thibodeau to bring in Jenkins. Is that a step forward, a step backwards, a step to the side? I don't know.
I mean, I do think context matters. And I do think when they were looking at firing Tom Thibodeau, I think part of it was process too. It wasn't just he got to the Eastern Conference Finals, Jenkins hasn't. I think it's more about what's the offensive philosophy of these guys, and will they do a better job creating an offense that takes advantage of the talent. So I hear what you're saying from the macro, just looking at what they accomplished, but the Knicks might be looking at something really specific in terms of what can these guys bring offensively and defensively that matches our team. I think they might be thinking more that than outcome. If I had to guess. Ajay, any?
I really don't have a preference, but and that's just based on what I've read a couple of places, is that Jenkins, he values defense a little bit more than Brown, and Brown values offense a little bit more than defense. Since defense has been like a real issue for us, I wouldn't mind the coach who would find a way to come up. I don't know. Actually, it's either way. I don't know, because defense, it's not. Is he going to come here and make Cat play defense, or come up with better defensive schemes to help Cat be a better defender, or Brunson a better defender? I don't know. I mean, I think these guys are physically limited to what they can do. And we do need different ideas on offense also to maximize those guys even more. As we just said in the last segment, these guys, we could get more out of them offensively. So we need a coach who's able to do that. So I don't know. Bring both of them in. I don't know.
Yeah.
1A, 1B. One coach and one associate head coach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
From what I read, I would be okay with either one. It seems like the knock on Jenkins was that he was trying to, wanted the offense to be less centered on Morant, and maybe, Morant had an issue with it. Maybe he had an issue with it. It seems like both of these guys, from what I understand, offensively are creative. Mike Brown with he had Sabonis and he had Fox, and that offense was pretty good. Well, so were the Knicks, at least statistically, until after January 1st, where it just crashed and burned. But he ran some of the offense through Sabonis. Like, Sabonis was a hub. So I would be interested to see how that would look with Karl-Anthony Towns. Not all the time. Obviously, you have Brunson there, but I would like to see that. Mike Brown been around. He's been around. So I think the players respect him. I think that's important too. That they'll listen, that they'll listen to him and they'll buy into it. And that team wasn't terrible defensively, with Sabonis, an undersized center. So I would be okay with that, and I would be okay with Jenkins as well. It was a lot of seems complex what was going on in Memphis, right? They had a really good record. Morant missed a lot of games through injuries and the other stuff that was going on. The front office wanted, brought in two offensive assistant coaches, one who was good with pick and roll, the other one that was good with a more free flowing offense, fired his staff. Yeah, that's just a tough situation for a coach to be in. I'm okay. I'm okay with
They're
either.
both good coaches. That's that's the thing about it. Like either one you hire
Mhm.
is quality. Like they both coach teams with a better than 500 record. They both have been to the playoffs on multiple occasions. So they're competent. It's not like we're bringing in some buffoon. Whether they can get us to the next level or not remains to be seen. But you have to give somebody a shot at it, and I think you're at least maintaining a baseline of competence with either one of those guys because I think they're both solid.
Right. And you're hoping that they bring something offensively in terms of creativity that takes you that one step without losing the other stuff. Right. I think that's that's important, important too. Yes, they did finish 12th in offense overall, Anthony D. But if you look at where the Knicks ranked from January 1st on, it wasn't good. So I think that first 30 games really is what got them to 12th.
And the question is 12th the maximum? Like as much offensive talent as this team has, we should be able to be top 10 at least at a minimum, in my opinion. Anyway, I think we should be top 5 personally. But
yeah, I agree. All right. Any size 9 says no to Brown. Brown got lucky facing the Warriors teams he had just left. He said, now you want to get into details.
shout out to Anthony D, man. You make the show better, bro. Thanks for being
that
here.
about it. Feel free to hop on anytime. We'll get you that forever link, and you can hop on whenever you want to. Any last words?
Thanks for having us, Queen. I do have to get going.
Yeah,
I've got somewhere I've got to be. But I love you guys. Go Knicks. Let's get a new coach in here. Plenty to talk about on Thursday. Maybe even a new coach in place. Who knows?
By Thursday,
a new coach in place, right?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Appreciate you. All right. You, Jeff. Any last words, IJ?
I mean, hey, overall, the starters, generally happy with the starters. And I've said this on this platform many times. I'm happy with the team. Unfortunately, we got eliminated by the Pacers. It's like there was a path, right? The path opened up, but the team got far. We got further than last season, and that was amazing because you got to remember this is the first time this team's playing together, and they got that far. The path open, like most people feel like that should have been us playing the finals tonight, but I know, Queen. No, I mean the path did open up, but I mean this is
the Knicks didn't take advantage of it.
We didn't take it. This is definitely a missed opportunity. But it's I'm very happy with the team, and I think better days are ahead. Let's wait and see what they do. What the front office does with the not just with the coaching situation, but also the roster, because we know the issues. If we could see it, Queen, they can see it too. They know we need to beef up the bench. They know what they need to do. Hopefully they're able to go out and do it with all the financial restrictions that they have. So let's see what comes out of it, man. And I think we'll be better next season. So
yeah. The thing about it is the coach is always the first to go. Now it's on the front office too, and the players.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're gonna talk about roster construction. They gotta find that other, if they could get somebody to replace Josh Hart in the starting lineup, have him come off the bench. He's much more effective when he comes off the bench and provide that burst of energy and crashing the boards, and he brings up the ball too. Like he's not, he could do a lot of those things. If he could do it coming off the bench, man, and then we have another starter, but maybe just somebody you need to rebound. I don't know, do little things in the starting lineup. Would be a much better team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I appreciate you, IJ, size 9, Mr. L, Anthony D.
Yeah,
Um,
Drew was in the house.
What last statement? Your last statement is what I'm most afraid of. I'm not sure what that was. Yeah, I know my condition. I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
Rebuild NYK. Sherman was in the house. Parish Duggar. Wiz.
X Productions. Shout out X Productions.
Production.
D Coolest.
Yep. JM. What's that? 3,000.
Who else? Von Allen was there. You said East Blue Drew already. East Blue Drew
Yeah,
was
East Blue
heavy
Drew.
in here.
Vaughn Allen, JJ, of course, Anthony D,
JJ.
David Smith, the president and CEO, all the positions, the president, vice president, and treasurer of the Carl Anthony Towns Hive.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys. And don't forget to hit the like button on the way out.
Yep. Shout out to the replay gang and the silent listeners. We appreciate you. And shout out to Lord Scientist. I know you be trying to get it. We just be talking so much, like just cramming it in to stop to take a call. But I'm gonna figure it out.
And Queen I guess
Shout out to Greg too, by the way.
There's still a show on Thursday.
There's still a show on Thursday. We trying to go Mondays and Thursdays, at least for June and July.
Right.
So that will be back Thursday, 9 p.m. All right. Until next time.
You tune in, that means you're feeling the vibe. The bell rung, you already been subscribed. Right now, the queen, she on live. Please pull over the whip, no phoning when you drive. Dope Soul sporting with the talk. First lady from New York, Brooklyn. All my people, you rocking with the chat. Hit that. The like button would tell me where you at. You know, step from the MBK. Born and raised up MBK. Hey, real lady, where she holding it down. No matter way how you feel, she gon' greet you with a smile.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's her.
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
What?
Dope Soul.
What?
Your soul.